Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on our podcast like we usually do. He's with the Lincoln Party. He's going to talk to us about his party. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andrew.
We're glad to have you. If you can get started by kindly telling our audience your name.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the invitation to your podcast of political parties. We consider ourselves to be the independents in the middle of the political spectrum.
Okay.
And we find that at this time of difficulties in our country, our nation ought to get together again in some form of unity in order to not be defeated by the multitude of our enemies. And
Sure.
It's always been that we found in our past history that President Lincoln, the 16th president of this nation, has been the best president because he was the one who was able to bring about the unity that is so necessary when we are having times of troubles, divisions, even civil war. A lot
Sure.
of people hesitate for those things because they have never seen war up close and personal, and they think that somehow they will prevail. But in the events of a civil war, absolutely nobody wins. And we've seen that in the 1860s, and whatever transpired during the presidency of Abraham Lincoln is what we want to avoid and use the lessons of the Civil War and the era that preceded and followed that to avert another fratricidal conflagration in our country today. This is one of the aims of the Lincoln Party, and as the leader and the chosen representative of it, we are always siding up with the people who are just. We are always sizing the situation and try to apply the remedy that is necessary to heal the wounds, to bridge the gaps, and to resolve that justice, equity, and honor will be the key words in our republic. We do not forget that our intellectual mentor, Abraham Lincoln, suffered greatly in his life for the good he did for the nation. But then we all know that no good deed goes unpunished. And in that respect, we pray to the good Lord above that will give us strength, courage, and the necessary solace to be able to carry on this difficult mission.
Sure.
We will support the important choices of the big parties should it become necessary. But occasionally we also feel that our own candidates that express clearly our positions in the political spectrum and that give us the wherewithal to advance the wheel of history forward. We want to see progress in our time. We want to see peace in our time. We want to see equity and honor in our time. And above all else, we want to see justice for all in our time. In this country, we can do well together as long as we don't split apart along the seams of our own racial divides that are fully imaginary and non-existent once somebody thinks about it. However, they are terribly well manufactured, and the fires are stoked by our enemies who finance these divisions, this hate, and they tear our republic apart. But our democracy is strong, and it will withstand that. And this is why the Lincoln Party, with 7.5 million followers, is a pivot. And this is why they call us the kingmaker, because whomever we support as a presidential candidate, that's the one who gets elected into great office. Since Republicans and Democrats are pretty evenly divided, and furthermore, 3/4 of the American electorate, they identify themselves as independents. So we arrive in that terribly difficult and yet sweet spot in the middle of the politics should be the hinge around which the big parties revolve. But at the same time, we are terribly targeted, maligned, and hated because we not always stay with the choices that we make from the previous electoral cycle. We believe that there should be term limits for the president, and one term would be enough, so they don't devote their time in electioneering, fundraising, and everything else, but rather they devote their time in governing one time and you are out. Term limits for everyone else as well should be instituted. And that, of course, is anathema to the political class that like to look at democratic service as a professional lifetime agreement. That is not a job as it was designed by the framers. The great George Washington, instead of becoming a lifetime politician, he chose to step down so he can allow this democratic process to evolve to term limits. Therefore, I believe there should be term limits for everybody. So in that respect, we can get the best and the brightest who can interrupt their lives, their employment, and their family style for a term, and then go back to their farm, to their professions. However, it seems that this is again something that everybody agrees is good for the nation, but they do not agree on bringing it on today. So these are some of the issues, along with healthcare, along with the belief in life, along with universal equity in terms of healthcare. We should not believe there should be a possibility that people ought to be bankrupted should somebody in the family get to have this terrible malady called cancer. We do not believe that we have a strong nation if we do not have a strong healthcare that carries over for everybody and protects everyone, because that is the national security, even more so than military security. We also do not believe in endless wars across the globe, but rather in limited engagements to maintain our service in peace in our times throughout the strong defense forces that we will have. However, we should be much more judicious on how we spend our treasure in going after literal mirages in the desert in the pursuit of hydrocarbons and fluorocarbons under other people's land. So, in short, the Lincoln Party represents the old school ideals of Abraham Lincoln and his time that still have not materialized fully to this day. And at the same time, we are the most progressive people looking forward in attracting the talent necessary to advance our science, our technology, our medicine, and above all else, my field of public health, in order to heal the wounds, physical, psychological, psychic, and above all else, political, that threaten to tear apart the very fabric of our nation today. That is our maximalist idiom and our best hope to keep our people together, to unite them as we are facing difficult battles ahead, great and powerful enemies, and above all else, this internal strife, which is a snake that has laid eggs that's blossomed into fascism, into communism, into socialism, and all these other isms that are contrary to our democratic republican principles. That is why I motivate myself to run for office, and in this particular cycle of election, to represent all the independents seeking to be one of the claimants to the highest office in the land, that our peculiarity of purpose might become an agreeable constitutional effort, as people will see in a similar vein to how a new party candidate, the third party, Abraham Lincoln, and the Party of the Republic that he had founded with his colloquial friends, came to split the vote between the very powerful Whig Party and the Democrat Party, and they found a place in the heart of the people, in the heart of unity, in the heart of our nation, and above all else, in the heart of history's progressive ideals. And that is all. Thank you.
All right. So how can our audience learn more about your party and support you?
Well, you can find more about us by communicating through our party website or in other means, or sending a private message to me as a public person. I'm very easy to find me, and so is the party. And we are the anti-party in the sense that we do not want to have members paying dues unless they choose to support the party. We do not maintain that people should be aligned with us. We are not a union like some Democrats and Republicans. They think of their own parties and hoping to get offices, support, and benefits once their own leader is in office. We are the opposite of that. We want to represent, as we do, all the people of America, and especially all of the people who have a lesser voice than the powerful, institutionalized voices of the big two parties that are well entrenched in Washington, and they have instituted a duopoly akin to a monopoly by sharing power as they see fit without including any other voices. It's a terrible world if it's just black and white, whereas we know that the spectrum of color is what makes life beautiful. So we would like, as a third party, to bring in this color into our politics. So instead of black and white and a binary, zero-sum game, we like to have a multi-spectrum of liberty, the plurality, the spectrum that includes all of the people. And that is something that a lot of folks who are part of the rainbow, whether it will be a coalition of all the rainbows, like the one led by destruction until now, or whether it be the rainbow coalition of all the peoples, of minorities, or whether it be the greatest coalition of the people in America who happen to be senior and disabled, and all these other people who in some fashion or another are a little bit imperfect. They all come together into the Lincoln Party in order to support a representative democracy.
All right. Sounds great. So we thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing with us about your party.
And remember, LincolnParty.net is where you can register and open up. LincolnParty.net.
All right.
And you will have a run in 2024 elections. Thank you
very
much, Andy. God bless. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye now.